What is up, everyone? Today we have a steel HS56C on the table that is in desperate need of tune-up. I'm doing a tune-up series, and this is going to be tuning up a hedge trimmer. It's pretty simple. A lot of this is going to be universal. Just because it says steel doesn't mean that it runs any differently. It still is an engine. It still has the same parts, just made by different people. So I'm not going to give part numbers because if yours is different, don't follow this direction. Just follow the generic direction I'm showing you and you'll be fine. First things first, I'd show you what's going to happen, but it's cold outside. I don't have anything to trim, so more or less the owner says he just wants a tune-up. He did notice there's a hesitation when he first starts it, and even when he uses it for a couple minutes it still hesitates, so he wants a tune-up. So we're going to do a tune-up, and just know that when he first pulls the trigger, it hesitates, and then it kind of slowly climbs. I'm not going to show that. You know what that means. First things first, though, is we're going to look at the condition of the blades and see if they're gummy or gooey or anything else. I'm going to kind of skip that part because I've already done that. I've seen these blades move. If yours is having this problem, a lot of the problem could be that your blades are dirty and it's having a lot of resistance and it's kind of causing it to bog down. This is not that problem. Know that you can do that. But for safety purposes, for tuning up the rest of the machine, I'm going to leave that on because those are sharp. Now, next part we're going to do is we're going to take off the top cover. Let's go ahead and get started. Well, hold on there. Over 90% of you, according to YouTube, are not currently subscribed. You're watching this video, but you're currently not subscribed. So I'm going to welcome you to subscribe at the end if this helped you out. I work on a lot of machines, so maybe the machine you're watching is going to be something you own, but who knows? Maybe you own a generator, a pressure washer, a big mower, a chainsaw, a variety of things. The only way to know if I'm going to fix it in the future is by subscribing, and maybe I get to the one that you own and can help you out then too. So I welcome you to subscribe, put a thumbs up if it does help you out. Back to your normal video. There's just 4 bolts that hold it on. I'm not going to go into detail because this is different in your machine, I'm sure, unless you have this exact one. More or less, you want to remove anything, it's going to be an impediment. It covers almost 99% of the time, the biggest part. So, what do we have here? There's no air filter. I know that because I took it off to get a new one. On the back of a lot of steels, and especially, they'll have a part number. If not, look up the actual machine, find the part number for the air filter, order online, go to your local provider or whatever. Not too worried about that. So, everything in here looks good. I want to check out this primer. It seems to be in pretty good condition. If yours was starting to feel a little cracking, or if you're going to feel like it is starting to cracking, that's a bad thing. If it is open and leaking, you need to replace it. These primers, pretty easy. You do have to be careful because sometimes you go online and you get stuff like this. Don't do that. For once, this is too big. And 2, I don't really like the ones with the spring in it. They are really nasty, and a lot of the aftermarket ones are okay, but I would recommend, because this can cause a real big problem, just to get a little bit more of an expensive one, because the expensive versions are pretty much, I don't know, $1 or $2 more. I mean, that's not even that, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, one of these is aftermarket. It could potentially work, but getting one with your actual brand on there is probably a better idea. If you are going to replace that, which I am, the owner actually prefers the cheaper one, not 100% sure why, always make sure your fuel tank is open. There is pressure in there, and you don't want to, when you remove it, have fuel squirt out, because it could get everywhere, maybe on your face. You don't want to do that. If you are going to be replacing this, you just kind of want to look and see how exactly it's placed in there. Looks like just a little clip on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and replace that, put that one on there, and we'll be back. Real quick lesson on these primer bulbs. These do not push fuel to the carburetor. It pulls fuel from the carburetor. So what does that mean? The carburetor has a line of fuel going from the inlet of the carburetor to the tank. And then there's an exit port on the carburetor where the in of these needs to go. So it sounds a little weird. Maybe the out should go to the carb because the carb is providing fuel to the carb. No, the tank is providing the fuel. All this does is it pulls the fuel from the tank through the carb. Excess fuel gets put into the bulb, and then later when you press it again, it goes back into the tank. It's just a big recycling game. So if when you put these on, you're going to want to prime it, and if you see nothing happening, you have it flipped backwards. So before we put any covers on, make sure it actually works. That way you don't have to worry about taking it off again. And if you do get one like this that doesn't really have any good markings, at least not very easily to read, if you put your finger on it and press on it, the one that you feel suction is the in. Like that, I can feel the suction. In fact, when I let go, you can hear it. When you put your finger on the other one, you can't really press on it very easily. That's the out. So the suction goes from the carb, and the one that you can't put any, or you feel the pressure, goes back to the tank. Remember, it recycles. Okay, so we have a new primer bulb. It is working correctly. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cap back on, which is important because we're going to look at the spark plug. Actually, no, let's do the next part. Change my mind. I'm going to put the air filter back on, the cover back on, because we don't really need to do anything else in this particular machine. If yours has a spark plug that's covered by the cover, leave it off. The spark plug on this one is not, so I don't really need to worry about it. But the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to look at the condition of the fuel that's in the tank. A final note, if you are using a steel, I would highly recommend actually buying the steel air filter. They're not that much more expensive than an aftermarket one, but they're worlds better. I think I can buy 2 of these online aftermarket. It's like $9 maybe. I went to my local supplier. I got 2 of these for $11. It's like $1 or $2 more, but you can just tell the quality difference. That's not for every brand, but just know that if you do have a steel, it's definitely better to get the OEM filter. On these, the spark plug is usually in a weird location. Here's mine. I'm not going to show actually doing that because it's easy. You just take it out, replace it, put the boot back on, boom, done. Doesn't take a scientist to understand that one. This next part is probably single-handedly the most important part. Well, maybe not. We're going to check the condition of the fuel. Now there is fuel on there. This is a 2-cycle, so it does need oil. I'm going to take a clear container and I'm going to pour it out. It's not the easiest because it's just how this tank is. Hopefully yours is easier, but I'm going to pour it out and we're going to take a look at it and see what the quality is. This is what came out. I'd question if that was even mixed, but it's definitely old. That's not good. There's a little floaties, but that's just because I had to take it out. Pouring it, and there's probably stuff that fell in there. Now, at this point in time, you need to look at your fuel lines. If your fuel lines are hard, like rocks, replace them. Steels, especially, they don't really have that problem. That's like the one good thing about them, pretty much. But this is a weighted fuel filter. It would be a good idea to replace it. So when you take it off, you just squeeze it and pull it off. And that's it. The reason why it's weighted is it has to be at the lowest point of the tank, because if you're going to be moving it back and forth, up and down, the fuel filter needs to fall. The full tune-up of this machine would include a new fuel line. Fuel line, depending on your machine, can be cheap and plentiful. Steels usually have a specific fuel line. Some of them might include a grommet. Look at your specific machine and buy what you need. This one, however, the owner specifically asked me to check it, and if it's okay, don't worry about it. I squeezed it. It feels to be in good condition. It looks as if it's in good condition. I am, however, going to replace the fuel filter because that one is probably just a good idea to do from time to time, even if it's not plugged, because the inside of it could be starting to degrade. You just can't really tell with fuel filters very often. After I put the new fuel filter in there, I'm going to put some new non-ethanol fuel in there with a good mix. I personally use Echo Red Armor. It's a great oil. I would highly recommend it. Look at your manufacturer, see if they require for your warranty. If your machine is out of warranty, then it doesn't really matter. Choose the one that you want, but at least make it high quality. I would highly recommend the Echo oils though. They're just very good for the price. We are coming to pretty close to the end. Now this is something that is especially important to check on 2 cycles on your muffler. There should be a little screen. It's called the spark arrestor. Now on this one, it's right here. You take off this little piece and it should be inside. The owner removed it because he has consistent problems because it's, well, it just has problems. So if you have one, then you're going to want to make sure you clean it. How you clean it, it's up to you. Brake cleaner, carb cleaner, spray it. Real gently, take like a toothbrush and clean it. You can take a propane torch or MAP gas. I personally like MAP gas because it's a lot hotter. It gets it red hot fast. That's the key thing. If you take it, hold the screen with like a pair of pliers. Get the screen red hot, blow it on it, and it'll just kind of burn off all the carbon. You have almost a brand new screen. Put it back on and you should be set. The reason why that's important is a 2 cycle can be choked from either end, the intake or the exhaust. Technically any engine can do that, but 2 cycles are especially bad because they're burning oil, and if you don't use them correctly, that filter, the spark arrestor, is going to get clogged up quite fast and cause a problem, which could be the bogging that we discovered. But with this one not having one, we don't really have to worry about that. So, and last but not least, look at the general condition. I already mentioned going over the blades. If you need to sharpen them at this point. If they're gooey, clean them. Maybe put a light oil on them if you want. Check the pull rope. This one is kind of getting questionable if it needs to be replaced here soon. I mean, it's dirty, but it's not really frayed. So, dirty is fine. Frayed is not fine. Frayed means that it's probably going to be breaking here soon. And with that, our basic tune-up is complete. There are other parts you can do. You can clean everything like I said. You could check the connections and the linkages, make sure all that's okay. You could replace every single line you want. It's really up to you. But the basic tune-up is we have done. Primer bulb, spark plug, air filter, fuel filter. We inspected the lines. We cleaned the spark arrestor if it had one. That in itself is going to do worlds for the performance of this. Being dirty on the outside, it's not really going to make it run any better, but you can. Don't tell me, I'm not going to tell you can't. Now, what you just witnessed was a good running trimmer. There's no hesitation whatsoever. Like I said before, it would bog down. It would eventually get there, but it would take a good 2 to 3 seconds. And when you're consistently going high to low, high to low, high to low, especially when trimming like smaller bushes or hedges, that can get quite annoying. This no longer has that problem. We should be good to go. So, if yours is bogging, take a look at doing a general tune-up, or if it's springtime and you just want to do a tune-up, here you go. This should be pretty easy. Total cost is like maybe 15 bucks, if that, depending on the parts that you want to buy. The quality is always different, and your machine's always going to be different. But single-handedly, the best thing to do is to change the fuel. The fuel plays a very big part. Right now it's February. Let's say you put this away in November or October. You put fresh gas in there. You went to the gas station and you mix everything. You put it in there. Like, I'm going to have it fresh for the spring. It's no longer fresh. Especially if you live in a cold area. That's not fresh. I mean, you saw what happened. I mean, that's not good. it will run on that, obviously. It will run, but it's not going to run well. So don't do that. I'm going to leave you at that. Follow me on Instagram at SmallEngine101. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night.